Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you so much. Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much for joining us at B'nai Israel tonight. It's been such a tough week, and it's so supportive and comforting to have you all here with us and to be together to pray and support each other. So thank you, thank you, thank you for coming. We're going to start out with Hine Matov. You can find the words on page 128, I believe, but I hope that you know it. And it is about fellowship and being together and the strength we derive from it. So we're going to turn it into a around as much as we can, although I'm not going to lead that part. You're just going to take off and do it, because I know how you can. So. And, added bonus. I am joined on the Bima tonight by Larry Smatrov. So you're in the good fortune of having his voice tonight. And we're also joined by members of Makela. So we are really all hoping the music suits us all.
Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, and again, welcome to Echo Linda. We are so glad you're here worshiping with us. As others sought today to frighten us and impede us from gathering, your presence is a statement of blessing and of commitment. We invite forward Debbie Siegel to lead us in candle lighting. We turn to page 120.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
When it comes to our candles, sometimes it takes a whole village.
And so, I don't think you know this, but Larry was like an Eagle Scout.
Rubbing two hands.
Right.
And we will do the blessing together. It's your,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik shel Shabbat.
Amen.
right, shall we say that together and sing blessing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you.
We continue to welcome Shabbat. L'chadodi will be found on page 138. We'll be singing the first, the second, and then the 9th verse of L'chadodi.
L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat l'kabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor v'gibor echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat l'kabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat l'kabela. Likrat Shabbat l'chuven elcha, ki mekor habracha, lerosh mikedem nesucha, so machase b'mashavatila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat l'kabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabelah. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha Adodi likrat kala, B'nai Shabbat nekabelah. Adodi likrat kala, B'nai Shabbat nekabelah.
Our service continues on page 144 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadav v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Ve'amati v'chirute v'amlik malchute. V'chayechonu v'yomecha uv'chaye dekol bet Yisrael. Bagala uvizman V'himeru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevorach, Le'olam U'le'me'omaya, Yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtavach, v'yikbar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh, v'yitalav, Shemei Kudishah Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'meru. Amen.
Page 146, we invite those who are able to rise.
Baruch et Adonai, HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed.
I read on the bottom of page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai,
Amamari V'Ravim.
And the bottom of page 150. Praise to Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Please be seated. The Ve'ahavta, page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha ve'hayu advarim ha'eleh Asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'di batam bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvleftecha b'derech ushokbecha uvekumecha ukshartam le'ot al yodecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha uktavtam al misusot betecha uvisharecha l'man tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim l'hiyot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Emet, page 157. Let's read responsively the second reading on the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Mi Chamocha, page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norah tehilot oseh felech, norah tehilot oseh.
Israel. Page 160. The theme of Hashkivenu is divine protection, the idea that God cares for each of us. It appears in the service after we've just sung Mi Chamocha, the prayer about liberation from Egypt. The hope is that just as people knew freedom and oppression from bondage, so might we be liberated from more personal terrors. The setting of this prayer is nighttime, a little prior to bedtime. It voices the plea that we might rest comfortably, the imagery of entering the dark and facing the unknown. May the unknown night, like the unknown tomorrow, be buttressed by a link to the source of compassion and care. Page 160, Hashkivenu.
Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom,
Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom, V'hamidenu Shomrei, Nu L'chaim, Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom, V'hamidenu Shomrei, Nu L'chaim. Ushmos etenu, uvoinu, lechaim u'shalom, me'av ve'ad la'am. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom. V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Our prayer for Shabbat V'Shamru, page 162.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, od hi leolam, od hi leolam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat l'dasot ad ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam.
Our service now continues on page 164 with the tefillah. We invite those who are able to rise. We'll be chanting the prayers beginning on page 164, continuing on the right-hand pages, the even-numbered pages, to page 170.
Adonai
Sifatai tiftach uviagi tehilatecha. Adonai
מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, שתומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, משנה עפר, מחמוך אווירות, ומדום מלך, מלך מביט ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch
Please be seated. The prophet Ezekiel warns us to approach life with integrity and with discernment. Do not cry peace when there is no peace. After horrific atrocity, the worst day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, we know how far we are from peace. Over 1,300 innocent Israelis killed, over 3,400 wounded by Hamas, 97 hostages held by Hamas, who has made the unverifiable claim that 13 of whom have died in Israeli airstrikes. Israel's ground operation has begun in the outskirts of the Gaza Strip after calling for civilians to evacuate. In these uncertain and frightening days, may we find ways to create small havens of peacefulness. May God give us the strength to be agents, not of disingenuousness, but of true peace and peace of mind for us and for all the world. We sing Shalom Rav, our prayer for abundant peace, page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon Shalom, ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'neinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Silent prayer will be found on page 180. Page 371, as we offer the blessing for healing this Shabbat, we are mindful of Phil Feynman, Alex Greenberg, Patricia Levine, and the some 3,400 wounded. There are also those for whom we pray privately. For those in our sanctuary, kindly share aloud the names of people for whom likewise we publicly pray this Shabbat.
Mary Pantos.
And for those on Zoom, we ask you to unmute and say aloud the names of those for whom we also pray this Shabbat.
Jessica Ann Bryan.
Michelle Klein, Norma Hecker, Gil Abramson, and Joel Rogovan.
Marge Goldberg.
Good. Sarah Schulfand and Dodie Pownall.
For all, may the Holy One send healing and shelter and protection. Our Misha Berach prayer, page 371.
frame our conversation this evening, some opening thoughts. A week ago here, our big focus was a bouncy house for the kids. How I pined for last Erev Simchat Torah at B'nai Israel. And of course, that's the least of it, given the news since and on Simchat Torah. That's a rather shallow conceit. For the devastation in Israel has been awful, and the news makes us apprehensive. The goal of Israel, the goal of Zionism, as we will sing at the end this evening, later tonight, is L'hiot am chofshi ba'artzenu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. The horrific terror attack leaves Israel with few alternatives. There must be security. Safety for Jews is part of Israel's mission. And without credible deterrence, there's no security. The weak don't survive in the Middle East or anywhere. Hence, from the situation of a week ago, Israel and we face an existential crisis. And that will certainly induce some moral tensions. Of course, our bottom line, and that of any civilized person, is that terrorism is not justified and must be thwarted. President Biden's speech, perhaps the best speech about Israel and our values ever given by an American president. Our IAC has it available with images which were taken from last weekend, and I hope you will watch it later. And Dan Goodman, he's the fellow right there. All you need to do is to speak to Dan, and we will get you a copy of this. Though I warn, the images are very graphic. You can hear the speech, but the images, viewer discretion is advised. Secretary Blinken's moving remarks in Jerusalem. Today, Secretary Austin's decrying of false equivalence. The comments of so many Republican senators and so many Republican presidential candidates. They all testify that much of America is with us. Much, but not all. Especially not at all in the academy, among some of our most well-educated. On campuses and in social media, there's been a drumbeat of callous disregard for Jewish suffering. Perhaps bewilderingly and erroneously, from their ideological prism, they don't even possess the vocabulary for it, for Jewish suffering. There's been squishy responses. You heard, and the folks who read the New York Times, you know all about what happened at Harvard. Let me share from the Yale perspective what happened at Yale, from Kimberly Goff Cruz at Yale. She wrote, "As we watch the violence taking place in Israel and Gaza, we mourn for the loss of life. Our hearts are with the millions of people who are suffering." Compare that with Amherst College President Michael Elliott. Here's what he wrote to the Amherst community. "As classes resume after fall break, I am writing today to express my outrage and grief at Saturday's brutal attack by Hamas on Israel and its people. This week, I have been appalled by the images and accounts of the violence and the acts of terror against the Jewish people and other Israelis. I am also anxious about the potential for further loss of life of Israelis and Palestinians in the coming days and weeks." There's a difference. All too also have stopped short and have not considered, didn't Israel withdraw from Gaza to be, in the first place, to be met with rocket fire? Doesn't Hamas reject Israel's very existence? Even now, listen to their leaders. They lie and they say no civilians were killed. Beyond equivocation, some are even going further in celebrating the violence. Sunday's area-wide congregational and interfaith solidarity gathering, which we had here, made the news. There are clips on Fox 61 and WFSB, etc., on YouTube. But go there and look at the comments. Some of those comments say, "Free Palestine," and the others say, "Jews are just interested in money." Most everyone here has their own example, and many of them are far more alarming than what I've shared. There's hurt from would-be friends and allies. There's hurt from a stunning lack of moral clarity. There's a nagging reminder that at the end of the day, Jewish lives seem more readily expendable. And all of this is eerily familiar and haunting. So what do we do? Well, first, Judaism counsels we always weigh context and perspective, that from a Jewish vantage, nothing is ever one size fits all. So as you look at the social media, as you have these encounters, first thing I would say is you choose the timing of your response. You choose, no one else but you. Secondly, when you see things that you don't like, you can ask questions. And more than that, you can also say, ouch, that hurts me. And finally, you can defriend or disengage. And if you don't respect someone, they shouldn't harm your internal well-being. As the challenges in the academy indicate, we are cautioned against confusing intelligence or cunning with morality. Smart people can be amoral. Smart people can have blind spots. Amongst the calls today was one which we received here in the building from a woman. She called, she wanted to express solidarity with us. Her contact with Jews, she had grown up in Waterbury. She worked for a while as a temple secretary in Waterbury. Her contact with the Jews she met was positive. And she shared with us that she feels a strong connection to us at this critical hour, which is another very important point. Understand that each of us, in all of our interactions, we all serve as an ambassador for the Jewish people. One of the ways we deal with our challenges is specifically by helping others. That can be financial. The Jewish Federation, and Pauline Zimmerman, President of Federation, is with us. The Jewish Federation has an email. Well, you just go to their website, jfed.net, and it brings you right to the emergency campaign that the federations are running nationally. Our Reform movement is part of that campaign as well. URJ, our Reform umbrella groups, say donate to Federation. Also, we add to the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. They are doing outstanding, outstanding work. There are others. For instance, Magen David Adom. This is the Israel Red Ambulances, right. The equivalent of like the Red Cross, the Red Star of David. They are great. Laban's right now is donating money to there. And not only are they doing it, they have informed us that donations to Magen David Adom are being matched 1-to-1 by Michael Bloomberg. So that they can be doubled. So certainly there are financial things which we can do, which is one of the ways which we deal with our challenges. There's also a local way we can do it by joining our Israel Advocacy Committee, our IAC. Dan Goodman is our chair. And there are other things to remain involved. In New Milford on Tuesday night, we haven't sent out the flyer yet. It's going out on MailChimp. You'll get it in your mailboxes tomorrow morning. It's being sponsored by Temple Sholom with the Federation and us as well. It's going to be a very important program. So don't get tired or distracted at the very moment when, more than in so many years, our people needs us the most. And this, if Arthur and Ruby can drive all the way from Rhode Island to be here tonight, you can schlep around Route 67 to get to New Milford or other future events. Finally, we need to remain resilient, and we need to remain human. We need to mourn for the dead, but we also need to focus on life and the tasks ahead. God willing, we will have a bouncy house next Simchat Torah. But in the interim, we must remain focused on what we need to do. And with that, I'd like to open it up for further conversation. We have explained tonight is a Q&A, and I think we have a microphone for the Qs. Let me see very modestly if I can help at least direct towards where folks might find an answer. So thoughts, questions, things which you're processing, and again, specific to how we are reacting to what we are seeing, what we are encountering, and the messages we are getting. Pauline?
I don't have a question, I have a million, but I think I can speak for everybody here in our community to thank you for organizing the event last weekend and for being our compass and for always being here for us. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you, thank you. I know this group usually not to be so shy. For Sherry, and
on High Holy Days, I know that you spoke about conspiracy theorists. And something I saw today that was so incredibly disturbing is, on the college campuses, there are young people, and when they're being interviewed specifically about the atrocities that happened, they're saying, oh, that didn't really happen. And, actually the interviewer was very good and said, well, there's video, like you can see this. And they said, oh no, that's a lie. So, and I guess the second half of the question is, how do you distinguish? You can support Palestinians, but not Hamas, right? So who are they really right? That's the problem. I think that when I see these protests, they're pro-Palestine, they're not distinguishing, and then the conspiracy theory on top.
Thank you. The conspiracist, there's no way to convince a conspiracist that there's not a conspiracy, because they'll just think that it's a bigger conspiracy which you're not aware of. And with things now like AI, I mean, there were always ways of doctoring things, right? The Soviets were great at airbrushing people out of photos, et cetera, et cetera. But now with AI, it's a whole different ball game. And so, so yes, and part of the response, I saw this interview with one of the Hamas officials, and he simply said, no, 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 not true. And they said, well, but what about not true? You know, they'll just deny it. So, and so that's going to remain a challenge for us. I think a number of us, and I think a number of people in this room, many people in this room, when we say we're pro-Palestine or pro-Palestinian, I think that the idea of two states for two peoples is something that many of us embrace, that the United States, it's American policy. When you say you're pro-Palestinian, though, pro-Palestine, what does that mean? Does that mean a Palestine in Gaza and parts of the West Bank? Or does that mean from the river to the sea? And so part of it is when there's obfuscation over what Palestine is, that can lead to all sorts of things. Our challenge has been that Palestinian leadership has not been vocal on a two-state solution. What they've been vocal on is a Palestinian state and a Palestinian right of return in Israel, which would no longer make it a Jewish state. And so, and that's part of the conundrum which we have right now. We see a few hands first. We saw Jerry in the back, and then Ellen and Ruthie, and then up front we have a few.
So I can say I've found, despite my best efforts, that I can't seem to stay off social media this week, even though I know it's a very bad place for me to be. I've actually found, well, I was going to say many allies, and not only Jewish ones, so it's not entirely bleak. And I've also found that so it's an encouraging thing. I've also found kind of debates back and forth, which were not all the way into crazy land and horrible anti-Semitism and conspiracy theorizing, but at times perceptions that could actually be changed. You know, one of the things that seems to be most shocking is that to people who are not Jewish is that probably, at least in the United States, the mainstream view is that there should be peace, justice, and safety for Palestinians alongside peace, justice, and safety for Israelis. So it seems to be a very novel and hard to grasp idea, but I think my sense that it's not completely unassailable and that people can see, oh, that's, you know. The other thing that I think I was going to say is I think there's a misperception, which is like repeated all the time in the New York Times, that the mainstream Palestinian desire is that Palestine is the West Bank and Israel is Israel, which just isn't really accurate. I just think there's an odd kind of misperception in the West that that's sort of the mainstream historic Palestinian goal.
Yeah,
and it's a little hard, it's a little tough.
The hope is precisely that there can be two states. The idea was that if the leadership creates it, the people will follow. That has been throughout, starting at the Oslo Accords, that's been what has been proposed. The public opinion doesn't back that up. And the leadership has been responsive to the public opinion as opposed to not. Einat Wilf has done some very excellent work on this. Many of us will be familiar that Abba Eban said that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. But that presumes that you're ready to make peace. If you're not ready specifically for that, the response has been far more cogent than that. With all of that, the great hope of the not vis-a-vis all within the Israeli government, and that's another topic for another time. But certainly there were many centrists and people on the center left in Israel who were hoping that starting with the Abraham Accords and with normalization of peace with Saudi Arabia and then perhaps others within the Islamic world, what that would lead to is a conversation between the Arabs and the Palestinians over where things can, because if their peace with Israel is normalized, what happens with the Palestinians? And so the hope was that that could lead to a conversation with the Palestinians about two states for two people. Obviously, that was the hope on one side, but there are other actors who don't want to see that happen. So yeah. That said, it's good to hear of the positive stuff in the social media. Certainly the stuff which often gets forwarded to me is the most drastic of stuff in the social media. There were some other hands. And the lovely Stephen Reps is going around as our microphone.
Hi, Rabbi. My name is David. This is my son, Alex. We are actually new to the community. We're sort of COVID refugees from New York, and our home is here now, actually in Goshen. So my grandchildren are...
Welcome. My wife, Ellen, will tell you there are no good noodle shops here.
Okay. Little in the way of good pizza. But we're very happy to be here, and my grandchildren are happy to be in this community. And we were here for the High Holy Days, and we appreciate the welcome we received. This reminds me of 9/11 and the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And I remember we went to Temple Sinai where we were members that night, for the same reasons we came here. And I'm worried about the path that Israel is on now in the military sense of moving into this very densely populated area. And I know that, sort of along the lines of what you said, we are all ambassadors in a way for the Jewish community to the outside world. But as this thing rolls out, and there are the inevitable casualties of civilians in Gaza, maybe substantial casualties, is it our job as Jews simply to speak the party line? There's a unity government. We had to do this. We had no choice. Or do we have a responsibility still to say the response has to be measured? It has to be in accordance, with international law. And, where do we come down on that? Do we just have to be loyal and kind of resist that argument? Because this is going to be a long process. Right now, I think the world has our back, but the longer we're in there and this is not going to be a 2-day operation, the mood is going to change, even as it changed with our occupation of Iraq. Initially, there was a lot of support for it, and it dissipated, and ultimately, it became incredibly unpopular. So where do we go with this? Do we just back Israel no matter what, or what do we do?
I think you've put your finger on one of the real challenging things here. Is that we're at one place now, where will we be in the future? I've read some reports and when you go to the Times website, their chief diplomatic correspondent is now in Israel. That's Steve Erlanger. Later on, when you hear the Kaddish list, you'll hear Erlanger's on the Kaddish list. They're from this community, they're from Waterbury. Steve was interviewed for a Times podcast this week, and he had been the Jerusalem correspondent years back. He has extensive expertise in this area, and he's concerned that will Israel be able to do what they say they want to do? There are concerns there. There are going to be all sorts of policy things there. I think that different Jews, Jews are not good at accepting a party line ever, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, the whole thing. But right now, and at least right now, I think that the reason why the American Jewish community is standing together with Israel is that this is different. This is different than some of the terrible crises which we've had in the past, and there's an awareness of how different this is. And I would just also add one other thing. You hear questions about the West Bank, about settler colonialists, et cetera. This wasn't an attack on a West Bank settlement. This was an attack in Israel on Israelis and on Israeli children. So it gives us a real sense of what Israel feels the stakes are for Israel. And I think what the American Jewish community sort of senses what the stakes are for us. It's my conceit, and I'm sorry, it was a shorter question than the answer, but American Jewry devoid of Israel will not be a sustainable option either. So I think that American Jews, at least a number of us, really realize that if being Jewish is being part of a people, and if more than half our people are in this predicament, what does that mean for us? So I think we have a number of hands, and so.
Do I have to stand? No. Oh, okay. I've been listening to everyone, and of course, thinking about something totally different to this. I think that in Southbury and our places nearby, we should be able to get together in groups and be able to share, because there are many, many feelings that people have, and they're not really able to share their feelings. And it might be very helpful, and I don't know how we would do it. I would love to be in a group that would help this. If we could get groups together and discuss, because we will be discussing for a while, and I think it could be helpful.
Thank you. IAC will be one place. Our discussion group readings will be another place. Vice President Sherry Kipperman, are you taking notes on this? And Vice President Alexis Zimmerman, are you taking notes on this? So programmatically. So we're doing the micro. We're on Zoom, and so other folks can hear us as well.
I was raised in Israel. I left there. I got there a year and a half because my mom was out at a concentration camp, and then I found out I was in a DP camp in Cyprus for a year and a half. And once 1948, we moved there, and it was not an easy life. And I've seen my dad get called off. All of a sudden he disappears, and I saw tanks rolling by the houses. This is years ago. But the stuff I listened to the news, and none of the Arab countries want these Palestinians, It's like, reminds me when the Jewish people were looking for places to go after World War II, nobody wanted them, except a few countries. I shouldn't say nobody. The same thing is happening. So how could all these other Arab countries bitch about it and complain about it if they're not willing to help?
One of the challenges, and the history infuses where we are now. So the history is that it was the Arab leadership in many countries felt that keeping the Palestinian question central was a good way of focusing their people's attention away from their own rule. And Palestinians got a raw deal. There are generations of Palestinians in Lebanon who are not citizens of Lebanon. The United Nations has two different relief organizations, one for the Palestinians and one for the rest of the world. So the Palestinian issues and their circumstances have been in some ways different. Yes, this needs to be. Israel took people from, majority of people live in Israel come from Arab lands and Muslim lands who ended up after 1948 coming to Israel, sometimes against what they wanted to do, but they were forced to flee to Israel. So there was transfer population one way, and they were welcomed. The transfer population the other way, they were not welcomed. Let's see, sorry, Ruthie, and then Dr. Dan. Yeah. Ruthie, you have to have the microphone here so that they can hear you on Zoom.
Friends, I'd like to read a quote from Elie Wiesel. As a Jew, I need Israel. More precisely, I can live as a Jew outside Israel, but not without Israel. I miss Elie Wiesel because he spoke with so much clarity. But listening to this exchange, I think this is right now an opportunity for everybody to make sure that we really know and understand the history, the involvement, and the establishment, and the various chapters of the existence of Israel. One of the things that is astounding to me is exactly in the corridor of academia. There are those voices with much poisonous hate for Israel that speak, especially, I guess, including some professors, that talk out of their sleeves. They don't really know the reality on the ground. They don't know the facts. And that is when various conspiracy theories run. So, last thing about that is very often when I hear people talking about the situation, people us Jews seem to take the position of being the apologizing for our existence, apologize for the fact that we have Israel, apologize for the fact that we survived the Holocaust. We need to be grounded with knowledge and be able to do the kind of discerning when we talk about the Palestinians, when we talk about the Israelis, we talk about where things have gone wrong. We need not to apologize. And I invite everybody to delve into the history. Thank you.
Ruthie, thank you. Dan Goodman is the chair of our IAC.
Hi, my good friend. I'm going to criticize you. We're all concerned about the human costs. We're all concerned about collateral damage. We all have compassion for people who have no way to escape. But there is no equivalency. There is no equivalency between what happened in Israel and what Israel is going to do in response. First of all, in response, it's a military response. If there's inadvertent civilian harm, half of the blame, 3/4 of the blame, falls on Hamas. They put their rockets in schools, in churches, in mosques, in hospitals. They have families who have terrorists, et cetera, in their basements, rockets in their basements. That's the one thing. Second thing, there is a false equivalency between a terrorist attack and a fight for survival. Don't doubt for a minute that if this goes unchecked, if this goes unpunished, that there will be more. If this goes unpunished, it will come from the West Bank, they will come from Lebanon, and God knows from Iran. So that's all. So I appreciate your humanity, and U.S. response to various things was flawed, but nobody a week after Pearl Harbor, on December 17th, or whatever, December 14th, 1941, said, let's worry about the Japanese. Nobody on September 18th, whatever year that was, 2001, said, let's worry about the Saudis or the Afghans. We have to worry about them, but first, we have to respond. This is existential, beyond belief, and it's also at the core of what Israelis feel right now. They feel extremely vulnerable. Expressions of concern for the Gazans are appropriate, but not now. Different subject. The Gaza area is bordered by what's been called the Gaza envelope. It's going to be renamed the Western Negev. People who live or had lived there don't want to be identified with the word Gaza. JNF USA has taken extreme steps to save the people. There are hotels around the country, for example, in Eilat, and the remnants of kibbutzim from neighbors of Gaza that were not completely wiped out, and there were several that were completely wiped out. The other survivors have been placed in hotels around the country. The Israeli government is not paying for those hotel stays. There's child support services for children who've lost parents, and even if they haven't, what are they going to do? The schools are closed. There's a tremendous amount of social work to be done, and tremendous amount of resettlement. So anyway, it's enough already. But please consider financial support now. Very simple, jnf-usa.org. And thank you. Oh, please, if you have any interest, please consider joining the IAC, the Israel Advocacy Committee. We meet monthly by Zoom. Nothing for you to do. There's no burden. There's no jobs. I don't need you to run around and do anything, but I need your support, and we need voices. Thank you.
I see Lindsay and Paul, so two more folks, and then we have some special prayers coming.
My question is more back to the people who, I guess, just don't get it. I've had multiple people who I would have thought aligned with me, like politically and morally, who were, I don't know how to phrase it better than educated wrong, in that they think that Israel just kind of popped into existence after World War II and that Jews had never set foot there prior to that. And I actually had a friend come out of nowhere on a social media post that I did not have the energy to educate this person, and they wrote like a 5,000-word essay explaining the whole history, and I was like, oh wow, there is an ally out there. And so that was amazing. But like even my own parents, I mean, because I'm converting, so my parents are not Jewish, I've had to educate them, and they were like, we had no idea, it's what we were taught in school. So like, what would you suggest when someone literally was taught wrong?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot to do, and you're raising such a great question. All too often we hear that the rationale for the state of Israel was the Holocaust. But that's not the rationale for the state of Israel. The rationale for the state of Israel goes back to a Jewish indigenous link to the land, continuous, which goes back thousands of years. And that's the point that oftentimes that is not seen. And so thank you. Yes, we have some work to do on that. There is a great piece which was in the Atlantic by Gal Beckerman. It's in my discussion group. They're going to be reading it this week. It's also going to be read by our Kulanu group. And it sort of touches on some of these themes, which is the great disappointment which we're facing because so much has not been understood or expressed. Paul, we're going to give you, I'll probably take the last word, but the penultimate comment.
Thank you. I'm next to last, that's great. I just can't help but observe when you talk about Harvard and Yale, and I remember a few years ago at the University of Virginia, the fascists were marching there saying the Jews will not replace us. And I think that one thing we got to start thinking about looking ahead is that maybe it's not so terrific to say my kid just made Harvard or my kid just made the University of Virginia. Might not be the best thing for us.
Ruby.
About Newport, Rhode Island. As we speak right now, the city of Newport is flying the Israeli flag over the city until October 25th. When we were in New York City on Sunday and we saw the protests from our building, we live right across the street from the UN. And so we were sitting at a restaurant down the street and on outdoor seating, and the pro-Hamas, some people, about 5 people pro-Hamas, they were Middle Eastern, and they were walking up and down our street going, Hamas, Hamas, really loud. So we got in very, very late Sunday night back to Newport, and Monday morning I sent an email to the mayor and all of the city councilors asking them if they would make a well-publicized statement denouncing the Hamas attacks. Now, I'm not saying I gave them, I like to think that was on their radar, but they got an email from 2 constituents, and I got 2 great responses, supportive responses from the mayor and one of the head counselors. And this morning they sent me a proclamation, not just a statement, but a proclamation, a sealed proclamation, and I sent it to Rabbi, and he said it was beautiful. There was no equivalency. They came down squarely on the position about what Hamas had done to the state of Israel. None of this, or they're fine people on both sides, none of that kind of stuff, but absolutely denouncing what Hamas did to Israel, and they're flying the flag. Thought you'd like to know that? Yeah.
So, Ruby, thank you. And you're going to find on page 377 a prayer very appropriate for this evening, which is the prayer for the state of Israel, Avinu Shebashamayim, which Linda and Larry now present. Page 377.
Right, it's a beautiful prayer. It's a lot of Hebrew, and I don't expect us to learn it tonight. But there is the beginning part of it that is quite familiar, and that I think we can all join in. It comes back at the end, and we can all join in on that. And then next time we'll learn another piece of it. How about that? Avinu Shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'go'alo, Barehem b'rinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmikat Geluateinu, again Aleha, B'Hevron
tova milfanecha. Please join. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael Legolam, Barech Midinat Yisrael, Reshit Mikach Geulatenu.
We now turn to page 586 as we begin our concluding prayers with the Aleinu. We invite those who are able to rise for the Aleinu. David and Deb Augenbrunn, we invite you to open the ark for the Aleinu. Page 586, the second paragraph down on the page.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lated gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kugayei ha'asot, velo osamanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahen, vego
Thank you. Please be seated. Page 591, we continue our singing V'ne'emar. V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai L'melech Kol haaretz Bayom hahu V'yeh Adonai echad Ushemo Page 598. At this moment in our service, we now call to mind our own beloved dead. We pray on their behalf. We voice the confidence that they are remembered for blessing. I ask that those in mourning, remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise if you are able when their name is mentioned, whether you're in the sanctuary or joining us electronically. We remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Maurice Berlin, Joseph Brinker, Joseph Cohen, Bernard Erlanger, Jay Erlanger, Sonia Frenkel, Beatrice Gold, Joseph G. Levin, Max Neidick, Sidney Scheinberg, Diane Schwedick, Evelyn Singer, Josephine Smith. Over 1,300 murdered. These are but a few of the names of the dead. Ophir Liebstein, he was the head of the Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council. I spoke about him on Sunday night. He was killed defending his town. His focus had been to build an industrial center on the Gaza border at the checkpoint to assist Palestinians in earning a living. Corporal Nathaniel Young, Colonel Jonathan Steinberg, Corporal Shira Shochat, Lieutenant Shiloh Cohen, Major Amir Sakuri, Warrant Officer Ido Rosenthal, Major Ariel Ben Moshe, Corporal Danit Cohen, Corporal Amit Geula, Corporal Roe Yosef Levy, Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Tsur, Tsur Saidi, Omri Ram, Aviad Halevi, Amit Wax, Yigal Wax, Oren Stern, Shlomi Molcho, Ayelet Molcho, Tal Keren, Narit Berger, Marina Almagor, Dolev Swissa, Odea Swissa, and as the circle of mourners touches this very community, we remember a 17-year-old girl who was murdered on Saturday morning at the rave, at the rock concert in southern Israel. Her name was Shelley Menschel, and she was the grandniece of Barbara Phillips. We ask our worshipers in our sanctuary, should you have a dear one to add, to please rise and say their name. We ask our online worshipers on Zoom to unmute and say the name of their loved one.
Esther Benenson.
Is it on?
I did it.
For those in our sanctuary, should you wish, we invite you to offer a short remembrance of a dear one. Please raise your hand for the microphone. We remember too the Ukrainian victims of Russia's invasion. Each Shabbat, we also mention 6 names amongst the 6 million murdered in the Holocaust, the Shoah. This week, we remember Mendel Zilberberg, Boris Kapelevitz, Elia Shabshevitz, Ben-Sion Sorkin, David Gershon, and Sasha Zelikowitz. In remembrance, on solidarity, and on behalf of those for whom there is no one but us to say Kaddish, we now invite all to rise if you are able. Our prayer, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute, B'chaye chon v'yomei chon, v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, B'agala v'izman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavarach le'olam almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrobam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu, La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, Damiran bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlamo rabba min shemayim, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Sherry?
Good evening. First off, I want to thank Linda and Rabbi Michaela. This was an amazing service, and louder? Oh, and Larry, yes, sorry. I'm sorry. I was like, I thought you were saying louder. I'm like, really? I want to welcome you guys. I noticed new faces right away, so welcome and thanks for being here. This is such an important day, and Carrie, discussions like this should happen a lot, and maybe we just begin with coming on Friday nights and being here together. It's beautiful. So thank you all for your presence. It's truly treasured. Because the only way to fight horrible tragedy and terrorism is to keep living, I ask if there's any good news to share. Yes.
Today is Andrew Goodman, Rabbi Andrew Goodman's 43rd birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. That's so nice.
He's our baby.
He was almost born in the Bonds Market.
Woodbury Labans, that's such a beautiful thing that they're giving back money. That was really lovely. Okay, tomorrow, October 14th, Torah studies at 10:30 in the morning on Zoom and online. Sunday, the 14th, their BERS is at Flanders Nature Center, which I think is absolutely lovely. And while we're talking about that, we also have a congregational hike on, oh, Jody left, the 29th, I believe. Am I right? 29th at Flanders Nature Center in Woodbury. So that will be lovely for all of us. Again, a great way to discuss and be together again. Rabbi also has an intro to Judaism class on Sunday at 10:45, followed by Tuesday, October 17th, Rabbi's discussion group at 11. But very importantly, Tuesday at 7 p.m., we are co-sponsoring with Temple Shalom of New Milford and the Jewish Federation, Israel, from the point of view of an Israeli, how this time it's different. A conversation with Joel Chasnoff and Benji Levet, American Israeli writers and authors. The flyer, like Rabbi said, is going out tomorrow. Please RSVP. It would be wonderful to see you all there. We're back for Shabbat services next Friday. Thank you again for being here. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Sherry. Tomorrow morning's Torah study is both in the Zoom room and on Zoom. So for those who are going to be joining us. For those who are able, we invite you to rise for Hatikva, Israel's national anthem, page 678. Then join me with the Motzi. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'ri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem mi'haaretz. Be with you and give you peace. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us in the social hall.